Right, just sit here.
Just right here. Right here is fine.
So first, can you give us a little bit about your background and how you think gladiator beasting has changed?
Oh, yeah, sure. So, I've been here for just about over a decade, and in that time, gladiator beasting has changed pretty dramatically. We used to be out in the battlefield all day, attacking, tagging out, coming back. Of course, everything changed when Tamer Editor got to be in charge. For the better, of course. Things are much more normal now. 2 Zoom calls a day, spreadsheets about synergy, combos during the main phase, all that. Yeah. No, gladiator beasting is different. But I like to think what we're doing now is just as fulfilling as when we were setting up plays for the battle phase.
Oh, you haven't heard? Your new boss Claudius wants you to get back into the battle business.
Really?
Good afternoon, Jank enthusiasts. I'm MBT, and this is 10-Minute Testing. I've said it already, but it bears repeating. Suda is less of a set and more of a cruel, sick joke. It's packed to the gills with powerful legacy support for some of Yu-Gi-Oh's most popular archetypes. Support that would skyrocket them to the top of Tier 1 in 2018. Let's look at another half-baked, half-decade behind brew. Presenting Gladiator Beast. So here's the list. I should mention that I think Primite is the way to go here, but you can play Tri-Brigade in this deck. As always, I'll give you a background about the archetype, a little bit of a discussion about what I hope the deck can do, and of course, the card by card. But first, this video is sponsored by Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro Deck. Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro Deck is a one-stop shop for all things Yu-Gi-Oh! They're responsible for the pack opener that makes series like Progression possible. They've got strategy articles for those looking to flesh out their fundamentals. They're the most complete repository of deck lists and results from regionals and YCSs online. And they've also got cube and draft infrastructure that's finally seeing use now that Yu-Gi-Oh! Players have come to the light of Limited. There's a good chance that any Yu-Gi-Oh! Content you see on YouTube has Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro Deck's many tendrils somewhere within its DNA. So why not go to the source and improve your game, draft with friends, or just see what 11-year-olds are playing in their Blue Eyes decks this month? Head on over to YGOPRODECK.com. Now back to the video. So with that, let's get it over with for Gladiator Beast. Gladiator Beast is a strategy whose legacy precedes itself. It was probably the first successful archetype deck in Yu-Gi-Oh's history. Each Gladiator Beast has 2 effects. Firstly, the ability to, provided it's battled, swap itself out for another Gladiator from the deck. And secondly, an effect that triggers when it's summoned via the effect of a Gladiator Beast monster. These fabulous furries pal around with the test animals, monsters that, under the right conditions, allow the Gladiator Beasts to tag out without entering the battle phase at all. This Proto-Tenpai was topping until 2014, at which point I have to imagine the pilots had all been totally weaned off of their all-glue diet. A few years later, Konami released a wave of legacy support, which turned their protect the castle, enter the Colosseum with a single monster style strategy into another deck full of board-building negate slop. From my perspective, Gladiator was dead, an important memory for longtime players, an occasional annoyance in Edison, and a fun excuse to get Simo to say Demiti Anus on camera. Until now, I'm happy to report that the new support in Suda for these former Battling Beasts is, well, battle-oriented. Gistel is a compromise for the fact that the deck bricks on bodies like nobody's business. Test Bear is the easiest way to cheat out Glads yet. Flavius is a field spell that searches a monster and sets a solemn at end phase. Darius is a sort of Promethean Princess and Armades on the same link to. And Claudius is a contact fusion from the graveyard who lets you do your battle phase twice. God, what a beautiful payoff. We're playing these cards alongside Primite, a great place to be if your archetype contains a normal monster and all the classic non-engine. So with that, let's get into the card by card. First up, 3 copies of Gistel. Or Magister? Oh, I'm not calling him that. At the end of the battle phase of this card battle, you can shuffle it into the deck to special summon a Gladiator Beast except himself, and once per turn, you can reveal this card and one other Gladiator Beast in your hand, special both, and if this card is special summoned by the effect of a Gladiator Beast monster, you can add a Gladiator spell trap from your deck to your hand. A little bit of cute templating here. By wording this effect the way that it is worded, if you summon another Gladiator Beast with the effect of Gistel, then it will trigger its effect. Speaking of a way to trigger the effect of Gladiator Beast without using the battle phase, next up is Test Bear. If you control a Glad that was specialed from the deck to the extra deck, you can special summon this card from your hand, but it's also a starter because you contribute this card and shuffle one Gladiator Beast monster from your hand or face-up field into the deck or the extra deck to special summon up to 2 Gladiator Beast monsters from your deck, and it's treated as a special summon by a Gladiator Beast's monster effect. Back in my day, you had to work for Secutor. We're playing 3 copies of Gladiator Beast Atorix. If this card is special summoned by the effect of a Gladiator Beast monster, you can send a Gladiator Beast monster from your deck or extra deck to the graveyard, except for Atorix, until the end phase, and this card's level and name become the same as the monster you sent to the graveyard. And of course, she can tag out. We are on 3 copies of Andal. This is just a guy. It's just he can't move, but he is a normal monster, which is important for the Primite cards. We're playing 1 apiece of Augustus, which when specialed by the effect of a Gladiator Beast monster, can special a Gladiator Beast from your hand in defense position. A copy of Noxious, which when an opponent's monster declares a direct attack, can be specialed from the hand, change the attack target to this card, proceed to damage calculation, and it can't be destroyed by that battle. And if special summoned by the effect of a Gladiator Beast monster, you can send a Gladiator Beast from your deck to the graveyard. And 1 copy of a Cast, which if special summoned by the effect of a Gladiator Beast monster, allows you to target a Gladiator Beast card in your graveyard and add it to your hand. This is exceptionally important because a significant amount of the Gladiator Beast cards, including some of the new ones, just straight up don't have a once per turn on them. Next up, we've got Flavian, Colosseum of the Gladiator Beast. You can discard a card to add a Gladiator Beast monster from your deck to your hand. When an opponent's monster declares an attack, you can special a Gladiator from your deck, and if you do, it can't be destroyed by battle. And during the end phase, if a Gladiator Beast monster is specialed from your deck this turn, you can set a Gladiator Trap from your deck. Your targets for that trap are going to be either Gladiator Beast Charge, which is just Ritual Beast Steeds, and Gladiator Beast War Chariot, which is a counter trap that negates the effects of an effect monster's activated effect. Now, importantly for this card, you are going to have to spend a lot on it. A significant amount of the cards in this deck require you to get rid of cards in your hand or from your field, and as a result, discarding a card is often no easy task. Of course, you can buy it back with something like a Kest, but you'll see what happens when we get into the games. 3 copies of Gladiator Proving Ground. Couldn't have named this card Gladiator Beasts Proving Ground, Konami. And 1 copy of Gladiator Beasts Comeback, which is just Monster Reborn with a couple of stipulations. We've got 3 copies of Primite Lordly Load and 2 copies of Primite Roar, which we will be cycling frequently. For our non-engine, we are on 3 copies of Fuwalos, 3 copies of Ash Blossom, 2 Drolls, and 3 Infinite Impermanents. As we move into this metagame, it's becoming more and more clear that Ash and Fuwalos and Imperm are all pretty non-negotiable, and after that, you can kind of pick your poison. I like Droll just because we really need a high-impact hand trap if we're going to be able to beat the current meta instead of just trying to go 1-for-1, and also it's got some applications going first in scenarios where you get Mulch Armied. In the extra deck, we've got Link Spider, Double Test Panther, Double Dyraios, which 2 monsters, including a Gladiator Beast monster, can special summon a level 4 or lower Glad from your hand or graveyard, or if your opponent controls a monster from your deck, and you are link locked into using Gladiator Beast monsters as links. Now, this isn't that big of a deal, but I guess you can't use Test Bear. Additionally, Gladiator Beast monsters can be destroyed by battle or card effects during your opponent's battle phase, which is going to come up. We're also playing 1 copy of Gladiator Beast Drag Asses, the real name of this card. If a Gladiator Beast monster you control attacks, can't be destroyed by that battle, your opponent can't activate cards or effects until the end of the damage step. At the end of the battle phase, if this card battled, you can return it to the extra deck to special 2 Gladiators with different names from your deck. Why are we playing this Drag Ass card? Well, it's simple. Usually you're using it to get 2 guys off the field so you can fuse them into Claudius from the graveyard. Speaking of our fusions, we've got Esadari, which I promise does come up in some corner case scenarios. 1 Gizzy, 1 copy of Tamer Editor to pair with a 2nd copy of Tamer Editor. This deck kind of lives or dies based on the resolution of this card, which just lets you cheat out a Gladiator Beast fusion. We've got 1 copy of Herc, which is a spell trap negator, provided you've got cards in hand, which you often don't because so many of your cards require so much of a cost. 2 copies of Domitianus, which is a monster negate, and 2 copies of Claudius, which wins combat, and boy does it win it hard. Has to be special summoned by shuffling the above cards from your field or graveyard into the deck and extra deck, and you can activate this effect if summoned. You can conduct your next battle phase twice. This can be activated turn 1, and will carry over until the next time you get to the battle phase. If your opponent activates a monster effect, you can activate the appropriate effect depending on whose turn it is. During your turn, you can special a Glad from your deck, and during your opponent's, you can special a level 11 or lower Glad from your extra, ignoring its summoning conditions. Since this card is going to be part of your end board, you can also do a little bit of toolboxing out of the sideboard, playing like a Retiari against decks that really need their graveyard to be untouched. But I'll leave that experience up to the viewer. Just remember that best is best. With that, let's get into a game. Our first match is up against Blue Eyes, and this is a less traditional Blue Eyes list. You can tell because of the Synchro Rumble, but still does do a lot of the same combos. Our hand looks okay. We're going second, which is a little frustrating. They're going to begin with a copy of Maiden of Light into a True Light in order to set a copy of Wishes for Eyes of Blue. Okay, that's worth an Ash Blossom to me. Afterwards, they're going to go for a Roar of the Blue-Eyed Dragon. All right, fine, got me. Into Blue Eyes White Dragon, into Maiden of White, into Wish, target Blue Eyes White Dragon, into Spirit. Spirit here is going to go ahead and grab a Mausoleum of White. They'll activate Mausoleum of White and target the Spirit in order to send a Blue Eyes. From here, the Spirit will tag into the Blue Eyes, and Synchro Rumble will bring back Maiden of White, into Spirit Dragon. They'll pass back to us. Let's see what we can accomplish. We're going to begin with a copy of Lordly Load off the top, getting an Ash Blossom out of our opponent's hand. Okay, well, that was its use case. They're going to go into a copy of Ultimate Spirit Dragon, and we're going to go into a Flavius. We're going to go for the effect of the Flavius, and then we're going to come back our copy of Andal. Next, we're going to go into our last remaining Gladiator Beast to make Darius into a Kest. A Kest here is going to cycle back this comeback, and guess what? Not a once per turn on this card. We'll go Test Panther into this comeback. We'll use the comeback to bring back a Kest, and Test Panther targeting the Kest to bring a copy of Augustus to our side of the field. Augustus will trigger. We'll go ahead and summon this Noxious, which will also trigger in order to send in a Kest. Finally, we'll shuffle back 2 for a Tamer Editor, and we do get to resolve it into a Gizzy. We'll activate Geyser's effect, targeting the True Light. They will chain in order to set a copy of, okay, Majesty with Dragons of White. Afterwards, their board is going to the graveyard, and they're going to cycle back for the Spirit Dragon, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It is now time to meet Claudius. We'll use Claudius's effect and go to the battle phase, walking over our opponent's monster and getting in for a fair amount of damage. Now for battle phase 2! So that's what the deck does in the draw, but how does it perform on the play? Without the battle phase, is this deck a lot worse? Well, not so. Our opponent for game 2 is on Labyrinth, and thankfully they've drawn no interaction. We'll go Lordly Load into a copy of Roar. That's going to go ahead and get us a copy of Andal to our side of the field. Let's go for the Flavius. We'll activate the Flavius effect, pitching a Droll to grab a copy of Adderix. Then we will just go ahead and summon 2 here, the Gistel and the Adderix. Gistel effect and Adderix effect in order to bin a copy of Noxious and grab a copy of Proving Ground, which we will activate in order to cycle for an Akest. We'll normally Akest and then go into a Test Panther. Test Panther is going to grab us a copy of Comeback, then Test Panther will target the Gistel to make it Augustus. The Augustus and the Adderix will go to the graveyard for a Tamer Editor, and we will summon out a Domitianus. From here, we'll go Comeback for a copy of Akest into a Darius. We'll activate the Darius to bring back Akest, and finally trigger its effect, getting back this copy of Comeback, and then finally cycling through our Link monsters until we have the requisite amount of material to go for something crazy. We'll go Herc, and then we'll make SP Little Knight before shuffling 5 back, and here he is, Claudius. Now, this is kind of weird. We want to set the infinite impermanence, but we also want to keep it in hand, so the Herc is actually on. Just one of these scenarios where you don't want to go so far down in cards. Our opponent's going to go for the Fiendsmith. We will go ahead and Domitianus that. They'll go for Ariana. I think it's probably worth using the effect of the Roar here in order to get that sucker in the banished zone. They will go for the Labyrinth Butler into Ariana. We will go for the effect of the Claudius and get out a Domitianus. From here, SP Little Knight can take away the Ariana, and our opponent can finally use the effect of Sharvara into Typhon. We will Beast Charge that Typhon to the graveyard, and they will pass. This should be a hop, skip, and a jump to lethal. Let's just go combat and get in with these exceptionally large men. So it's time for game 3, and you know what that means, a best of 3 versus meta. Our opponent's playing Malice, and we are going first into Fualas. Well, we'll try for Test Bear and get Ash Blossomed. All right, well, joke's on them. We weren't going to be able to summon after that anyway. They're going to go for a copy of Hornet Drones into a token, into a Kagari, targeting the Hornet Drones, into a Hornet Drones for a token, and then, of course, they will activate a Mouse in Underground, banishing a Dormouse. Dormouse will trigger here, taking 3 and summoning it to their side of the field. Dormouse is kind of one of the weaker opens of the Malice archetype, and not setting that TB11 is kind of costing them here, but they do still get to go into Red Ransom and activate the TB11 to go into Chessy Cat. Means they can't dodge anything, but does mean they get to do full combo. While you want to start with a significantly different open, this is certainly fine, especially against 2 cards remaining in the hand of the Gladiator Beaster. They're going to go for White Binder here, banishing 3, triggering the effect of the Link Decoder to summon it back to their side of the field, and the White Binder effect in order to set an MTP07, which they will then activate, banishing the White Binder, and then using the effect of the White Binder to bring it back, and then activating Gold Sark in order to get a Dotscaper into the banished zone. That's enough material to make a Neo Tempest Terahertz, and are we dead already? I guess we take 5,500. They'll set a copy of Infip. They still have the GWC, and we'll just scoop it up. So it's time for game 2, and Okay, this is looking better. We have to beat one Ash Blossom and a couple of Allures of Darkness. That Jesse video where he talks about Malice's play pattern is just stuck in my head permanently at this point. It really does occasionally feel like Snake Eye, where you either just have infinity extenders and non-engine, or just draw a bunch of redundant cards you don't need. I like my opponent waiting on this Ash Blossom until the Darius, knowing that it's the only piece of interaction, and just firing it off willy-nilly and hoping the turn ends is not going to be enough. We do get to drag asses, and we'll go Claudius here as well. We'll set this copy of Charge and pass back to our opponent. We do get 2 battle phases on the next turn. They will go Forbidden Chalice targeting the Claudius, but this Artifact Lancia will just make quick work of everything. We're going to go to the battle phase. We'll get in for 37 and 2k. Of course, we can tag out with that Dragios's if we want, but we don't need to because we have a battle phase 2. So it's time for that all-important game 3, and whoa, we have drawn really well. Lancia Fuelos. Let's go ahead and fire the Lancia as early as possible. Our opponent's going to go for an Engage into Widow Anchor here and set 2, Frightening. We'll draw for turn and try to force it through. We're going to begin with the effect of Gestel, which is prime fodder for this copy of Impulse. Yuck. Let's go Proving Ground into Ondal into Link Spider into Ondal. So happy this is coming up. Into Test Panther, into Widow Anchor. Oh god, not only is that the end of our turn, we now have a monster on our side of the field, so we can't Fuelos. Okay, our opponent's going to go for Allure of Darkness, banish a Chessy Cat, and that should be all she wrote. Chessy Cat here's going to trigger. They're going to banish the Dormouse, trigger the effect of the Dormouse, summon the Dormouse. The Dormouse will trigger. They'll banish a copy of White Rabbit. White Rabbit will trigger 300, summon to their side of the field, trigger the White Rabbit, set a copy of what? TB11, yep. And then we'll go into a Red Ransom effect, chain TB11, banishing the Red Ransom. We'll summon a copy of Chessy Cat. Then a Point of Resolution will activate the effect of the Red Ransom. We'll use Red Ransom to bring itself back, banish a copy of Dotscaper, summon it to their side of the field, and go to a Link Decoder. Next up is White Binder effect to banish all my gladiators. No! Bring back the Link Decoder, and then afterwards White Binder effect in order to set a GWC. They'll go into a copy of Access Code Talker, activate it, targeting the White Binder, and guess what? That's extension. They will banish the White Binder, summon the White Binder back. I guess we can draw a card off this, and then we'll just scoop it up. So we're back with the deck, and losing to Malice is nothing to be ashamed of. I'm sure many big beefy bears can't tussle with the girls. Let's do the pros and cons. First, the pros. 1. The new Glad Beast cards offer the deck a less committal playstyle than the all-gas, no-break strategy they had settled into. You used to have to resolve Test Panther or perform Cold Fusion to get to Tamer Editor and begin the loop. Even through interruption, now the deck can at least get access to Claudius with a good hand, which allows you to get either a negate or a pop 2 onto the field with the threat of a second battle phase on turn 3. Darius also gives the deck a huge boon going second, and his Graveyard Revive going first becomes a summon from the deck if the opponent controls a monster. 2, the deck has a really high ceiling when uninterrupted. You get to loop Tamer Editor like 2 to 3 times. It gets you 3 negates. You get to pop 2 alongside whatever you set off the field spell. The field spell gets you access to Charge or War Chariot, these extremely strong traps that you don't have to waste a search on. And 3, Test Bear is an incredible example of the kind of card the deck was missing. It can be used as extension, of course, but it can also be used as a starter. It tributes from hand if needed when normal summoned. It acts as a 1-card combo. It can be summoned from hand for free if you control a Gladiator Beast summoned for the deck or the extra deck. And the cons. 1, the deck does still kind of revolve around exactly Tamer Editor. If you don't resolve this card, the ceiling is so much lower, basically ending on 1 to 2 of like Claudius and SP. And Tamer Editor can also be awkward to navigate without overcommitting to engine. It does feel, despite the fact that you now have the tools not to commit, you're often either going all in or just ending on a much lower ceiling and losing. 2, it does struggle to go second most of the time. The deck doesn't swarm well and without seeing Magister, and whilst you can establish boards after putting bodies on field and going to the battle phase or going into drag asses or Dairos, the deck loses very hard to 1 or 2 pieces of onboard removal. And 3 are floodgates. The deck doesn't really have any plays into Dimensional Barrier Call Fusion other than summon guys and end on a trap, and it loses extremely hard to Shifter. It sucks that better decks are losing to these cards, so you will see them. You should be able to get away with it, but you can't. Overall, it's nice to see the deck be brought up to speed and returning to its battle basics, but don't expect everyone to be summoning Geyserus again anytime soon. So that's that. Thanks so much for watching. These videos are completely funded by, and occasionally suggested by, my patrons, some of whom have paid top dollar to be announced at the end of the 10-minute testings. Here are those people now for whom I am permanently indebted. About 99 Donuts, Elena Tincher, Alex Perea, Allison Elliott, Ally, APK, Pearly Tier 0, Brett Henry, Cool Name, Damon O'Neill, Dark Rebel XYZ, Derpin Dragon, DJ Elefante, NB Adams, FPS Lord Derp, Garrett Ran, Hergalicious, Night Mary, Legal Rights, Lockstone, Luis Hernandez, Lullaby of Souls, Master of Faster, Matthew M. DeRezzo, MBT Play Madolce, Mike Carlotti, N54 Lionheart, Nacho Gonzalez, Nebula Yu-Gi-Oh!, Pombo, Project Mercury, Rohan Doge, Rose Lapine, Serpentax, Shelby Piet, Sly Ninja 43, Soul CLG, Troy Says By Erasure Is Gay, Who's Nick, Wonder Waffle, and Yukika Zami. Couldn't have done it without you.